Hey guys, Danny Gustin here with Danny Gustin Fitness, here with my most seasoned trainer, Nico Dato. Today we're going to learn a little bit more about Nico, his story, some of his certifications, in particular like his corrective exercise certification, his spiritual life coaching certification. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Nico, as well as just some takeaways from Nico's experience as far as his personal training career, his life coaching, his corrective exercise specialization, and how some of you can apply that to your own lives in a practical way, and just have a good time. So thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you being here. All right. What's up, dude?
How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Dude, I am great. The weather's awesome, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You said you had like a little bit of a migraine thing going on earlier?
I did, yeah. I woke up with it, mostly just due to poor sleeping.
Poor
On
sleeping?
my stomach, yeah.
On your stomach?
Yeah, I'm a stomach sleeper.
Oh, dude.
Working on it, though.
That's like the worst way to
It
sleep.
really is. How do you sleep?
Side.
Side sleep.
I try to get like the
There's
arm.
cons to that, though, too, right?
How so?
What I've heard is shoulder. It could be tough on the
Oh,
shoulders.
kind of like just putting it in like
Yeah.
a smash state.
But, yeah. There's always
Something's going to get you.
Uh-huh.
I just like to be flexing. So, but yeah, you're feeling a little better now?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, well, I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, me too.
What do you got going on lately?
Just really adjusting to summer and the warmer weather, doing some more outdoor stuff. Continuing with just nice exercise routine. A little bit lighter on like foods. I like to eat a lot of fruit and smoothies and stuff like that in the summertime.
Yeah, you were telling me about that the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever notice any like difference in doing it that way?
I feel
or is
lighter.
it just you're more drawn to it in the...
Yeah, I don't know why I tend to do that. It just seems more refreshing to me in the summertime. And I don't know, I just feel lighter and more... Yeah, would you know what I mean if I say lighter?
Yeah,
compared
definitely.
to like heavy meals.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to hit protein goals and stuff like that. And again, we talked about this the other day, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just like to incorporate more fruits and smoothies. It's just refreshing on a hot day.
When I moved out, at some point, there was just like a bunch of books at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like trying to think of like making a library.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. And one of them, I don't even know why my Catholic family would have this, but it was like the Tao of Qigong or something like that. I have no recollection of like the exact name, but it basically was talking about how there's ways to eat for various seasons from like almost like this
I guess I do that.
ancient Chinese or whatever it was, like philosophy. Like you're more likely to eat things like soup and stews and
In which
heartier foods
season?
when it's colder out.
Yes,
Not just
yeah.
because it's easier. It's like something about it actually is just works better for your system. And same thing, like fruits, salads, and things like that are more refreshing and crisp in the summertime, the springtime.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, I noticed that too. Like, I really don't like eating salad
Right.
probably in general, but
Right.
no, I'm just kidding. I like salad. But salad in this wintertime, just for some reason, or even like smoothies to an extent,
Yeah.
you know? And I guess that's common sense, right? You don't want to be freezing in the wintertime.
100%.
But so it's just more a matter of like intuitively you got onto
it's
that.
totally like just intuitive. And like you said, like the wintertime, definitely more soups and like even heavier like stews and stuff like that with protein, more beef and stuff like that.
And those are
So
easy to
it's-
like make
yeah,
too, right?
totally is.
Do you just do like a crock pot or something
Absolutely.
like that? That's awesome.
Throw a bunch of stuff in.
Yeah, and how long does that get you through?
What do you mean?
Like if you make a batch of stew.
Oh, well, definitely there will be leftovers. So that's what's nice. You kind of make for a few nights, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
you do
like
the same thing?
No. No. But I probably should. Like, especially now that, you know, we've got 2 kids. Like,
Yeah.
it's like we have routines and disciplines established.
Right.
And then with our firstborn, it got disrupted.
Yeah.
And then we're getting back into it again. And then now we just had our second kid. So we had a routine, it's disrupted, so now we're just trying to get back into it again.
Right,
But
right.
that's something we've talked about for a while, just like the ease of like crock pot meals.
Yeah.
You know, because you can kind of get it going before you actually leave for the day or the night before or something like that, as opposed to just being available.
Right.
Like, or needing to be present.
Right.
Right? Like, I already like to do stuff like, you know, like put a baking sheet with like chicken, veggies, things like that on it. Like, I feel like whenever you can almost get like that washing machine, dishwasher effect where it's like, it's going without you necessarily needing to be present, you can get some other stuff done.
Of course.
I feel like it's easier for a lot of people to actually like implement that on a regular basis. But yeah, not with the crock pot yet. We're working our way in that direction.
Gotcha. So what have you been up to?
Dude, main thing is just the new guy. Little Brennan, to all those. Little Brennan was born April 23rd. So yeah, we're about 3.5 weeks in now. So just kind of
adjusting to
that new normal. I do have to say, in most ways, it's been easier than it was with our firstborn.
Oh, interesting. Why is that? Like, in what ways?
You know, like, I've heard this from a lot of people. I can mostly just speak to my experience, but I've heard other people say stuff like this, is that with the firstborn, it's new, so you're more likely to react intensely or, like, overreact to certain things. You know, like, you hear them cry, and it's like, oh, my gosh, right? Or they trip and fall down, and you're like, oh, my gosh, right? They're hungry. Like, everything is more like, my baby's gonna die, right? You know, and, like... in fact, that was like a piece of advice one of Crystal's cousins gave us. He's like, don't overcomplicate it. Just keep him alive. I'm like, I think I could do that, right?
Try my best.
But yeah, like, so in that way, it's gotten a little bit easier in the sense that, you know, we're just not sweating the small stuff as much.
Okay.
Right? We're a little bit more in tune with, you know, what's this type of cry, what's that type of cry. And part of it is just being in tune, and part of it is just, that's just like the way it has to be, right? Sometimes when there's two of them, and if they're both crying, it's like one of you just has to like deal, you know. And in this case, it's hard to say which one, because Jamie, our oldest kid, is a little bit more, I would say, dramatic.
Okay.
He's definitely got a personality on him.
Interesting. Okay.
But fortunately, Brennan is pretty laid back.
Okay.
So I would say the main difficulty is just like, you know, just figuring out how to manage that. Because like sometimes you get home from work, it's been a long day. Of
course.
And it's like, it's kind of funny now. I'll look back and be like, wow, the things I thought were hard, I want those hard things back, right? Like Jamie's just off the walls. And now it's like, okay, unless one of them are napping, you have to be tethered to that situation, right? It's not like Jamie can be downstairs crying and Brendan can be downstairs crying, and I'm just like, Crystal, I just got home from work. I need to just decompress for about a half hour, so just deal with this, right? Like, I could do that, but, you know, it probably
and
would
I don't
not
know if
go
you could
over well.
relate to this, but, like, especially in the work we do, we're dealing with people all day.
Yeah.
And it's great, but it can be exhausting to have 8 1-hour conversations a day, or, you know, I know we've talked about this before.
Oh, yeah.
So it's, like, draining, you know.
Absolutely.
So we need that, like, I know I do, I need that, like, time, oftentimes alone, to just decompress and relax a little bit.
Yeah, that can be huge. It's amazing sometimes how just, like, I think I'm tired sometimes, and then I'll just be alone for, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just playing chess on my phone or something like that.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden I'll be like, I feel so much more alert and awake. And it's like, I just needed to be away for a sec. You know, and it's interesting too. It's almost been illuminating over time. Like, I used to think that was strictly like a personality type thing, but I think it also just has to do with like creating balance in your life, about like getting certain. Do you ever play Sims back in the day?
Yeah.
It's like you got your bars of like social,
the social battery. I always joke about that.
Right? And so what's interesting is my wife's maybe not as social as I am, but she's pretty social, and she's longing for that more at the end of a work day, because she has more of like a typical corporate setting job where, you know, maybe spending time behind a computer. And it's like, I almost feel like I have a vibrant social life just for my job. So sometimes I get to the weekend and I'm just kind of if we hang out with people, cool. If not, that's cool too. So, but yeah, that would be the main thing. It's just kind of navigating this new normal with Jamie and Brennan and Crystal, just figuring out family life. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
Awesome.
So today I really wanted to just kind of hear more about your story. Obviously, you and I have known each other for 4.5 years.
I think it's about 4.5.
You came on like basically
COVID.
right after COVID. I'm pretty sure it was like June or July of 2020.
Yeah.
That's kind of
June,
crazy.
I think.
A lot has happened since then.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'd love to hear just kind of like, where were you at in life at that time? We never really talked too much in detail about it, but how did you even get into fitness in the first place?
In the first place, it was just such a big part of my life. And so I was working in a gym prior to coming here, of course.
Yeah.
Many years before. And so I was in the gym atmosphere, but at like the front desk.
Okay. So like doing more memberships?
Yep. Memberships and tours and stuff like that. So how I got into actual personal training was the current trainer at that gym was quitting, and he recommended that I take the trainer position. It was just one trainer at that gym.
Okay.
So he recommended I applied to do the training because I already had knowledge on it. So that's how I got into it. And then from there, I just loved working with people, and it's progressed to other things as well. So that's how I started getting into it, but I think it started out of passion.
Okay, so
just doing it myself and working on my own goals.
So you were just fitness, exercise was a part of your life. And,
exactly.
And then someone quit, and then...
Yeah, that's how I got into it.
It's kind of cool how sometimes life works like that, right?
Yeah, it was just like a door opened, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like a chance encounter.
And it's crazy, like the chain of events that it can create,
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, what's that saying? Like, luck is... do you know what I'm talking? Luck is like opportunity meeting preparation or something like that.
For sure.
That's kind of how training worked for me too. I was like 19 and just had been working in restaurants, and I knew I wanted more because I was busting my ass for minimum wage, right? I'm like, I have to do something different than this. And I just met with a mentor of mine, and he's just like, oh yeah, one of my students recently went to this trade school called the National Personal Training Institute.
Okay.
I think you'd like that. You like working out. And it was just like one of those things. A week later, I went in and signed up. It's like...
And that's how it started.
And that's just how it goes. So what kind of stuff were you doing for fitness, like prior to training and getting your training certification? And then how did that change as you were getting, like, I guess, more educated traditionally?
Yeah, exactly. Educated, because when I was starting with my own workout routine, you can probably relate to this. It's like you don't really know what you're doing, as a lot of people when they first start. Because there's also, you might look up workouts on YouTube and stuff like that. And, it's a lot different from what we do now because they're personalized programs will for our training clients. Yeah. So, I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I still made progress, but but as I became a trainer and got certifications and worked with people, then you learn more. And what I know now compared to 4, 5, or 6 years ago is drastically different.
So it would just be like a practical example of that. Like you were doing X prior to getting certified for your workouts, and then just like subtle little
the corrective exercise was a big thing when I got learning into that and the certification for that. Okay. Because it's just learning more about the body and stuff like that. But overall, I would say just proper form, really, on if we're talking about resistance training, which is mostly what I'm talking about. Okay. So proper form.
I was laughing while you were mentioning that because no one can ever discredit me for not putting in the effort when I was like 18 and like really getting into lifting. But God, I was doing the stupidest workouts. So actually, I remember this scenario where I basically was working out 7 days a week for like an entire year. I basically did like this classical push, pull, or shoulder trap, chest dry, back by, leg split, and just cycled it forever. And I'm not dissing that particular split, but I just did that 7 days a week, just kept going and going and going. And so finally, my dad saw I was putting all this effort, and my dad's, a Naperville police officer at the time. They have like a athletic trainer there who does a lot of their fitness programming. And he goes, hey, why don't I have him just look at it just to see what you're doing? And my dad comes home after that happens, and he basically just tells me he showed the program to the guy, and he just started bursting out laughing.
Oh, wow.
Because I was basically doing, for a chest day, for example, I did flat bench, incline bench, 3 sets for all of these things. Decline bench, flat dumbbell chest press, incline dumbbell chest press, decline dumbbell chest press, flat cable fly, decline cable fly, incline cable fly. Then I got to triceps.
Oh.
So it's like by every single chest try workout was like 27 sets of chest, right?
27.
So like I did bulk up. I think I remember going from
Yeah.
like 160, 155 to like 180 pounds.
Uh-huh.
But it's like I think about like the labrum tear in my right shoulder and like this and just little stuff here and there, and I'm like, maybe that wasn't the smartest. Because now you know how it is. It's like my volume for a particular exercise for myself and even with most clients is half to like a third of that.
Sure.
And as long as you're like just giving it your all for that set,
right,
it's a lot more effective. But anyways,
100%. Yeah.
I don't regret it.
Oh yeah,
it was good
part
times.
of the process.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned the corrective exercise certification, right? So it sounds like you got your training certification, and maybe you didn't feel like there was anything too groundbreaking from that as far as what you already knew relative to fitness, or would you say that's true? Or
I would say that's partly true, but it was just I wanted to learn, just like you just want to keep learning, so that's the biggest thing.
So then it really kind of took off. So why don't you just explain what is corrective exercise for like people who don't understand?
Yeah, it's
because
just,
like we were talking about that earlier, you know, a lot of people, you see like maybe a trainer on a website or a wall or something like that, and you see these letters, and it's just kind of like hieroglyphics for most people.
Yeah,
so
I mean, most of like, there's exceptions, of course, but most pain that people feel is probably like a muscle imbalance. So it's a lot of just, working on muscles that are tight, maybe stretching them, foam rolling, static stretching, and strengthening the ones that are weak.
Okay. That's corrective exercise.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, and I have that as well, right? So I think that's a perfect way to describe it. Is basically just, I think I remember in the course, they said something like 80% of the discomfort people feel on a regular basis 80%. Is not from some sort of structural issue like they have arthritis or this or that. It's actually just a muscular imbalance, right?
Right.
And for some people, it's even more simple than that, right? It's just like you need to just get moving,
right?
Or take some weight off, right?
Yep.
So that's pretty. So what would be, for anyone out there who is, hearing something like that, and maybe that sounds like maybe a little high level, what would be like a practical way to break down, like maybe an example with one of your clients who has benefited from like your corrective exercise specialist certification, and you guys are working together, something happens or you notice something, what would be like maybe like a layman's version of that playing out?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing like that we notice, because I'm sure you can relate to this too, is muscle imbalance due to like sedentary lifestyle or the desk jobs, right? Yeah. We talk about this all the time. Like even now I'm trying to have like good posture.
Right, we're both like, well, hold on a second.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of correcting around that. And from what I've seen, like a lot of tight hips and tight like chest muscles, pulling the shoulders forward. So that's what I find most with people, because a lot of people have desk jobs nowadays, working from home and stuff like that.
Okay.
So just ways to work around that.
So it would be like a basic nugget that someone could take. Someone listening is a desk jockey, and they're like, hey, that all sounds great. What's like a easy way I could start implementing?
Yeah, well, I mean,
obviously it's one thing to assess someone
for
the purpose of creating like a customized strategy.
But for a quick thing, I would say that there's no like, I think constantly changing posture is good. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but like move, like if you
just
are
moving.
Yeah, moving, getting up and down. If you can take calls walking around through AirPods or something.
Yeah.
I do have a client that she worked on doing that, and that helped a lot with just walking around her house and moving around. Or even when I'm doing like some work on my computer or something like that, I just go to the ground and like move around on the ground into like maybe a few seconds seated on the ground. I don't know. I feel like constantly moving instead of just seated, all day in the same position,
Yeah.
will make a big difference on its own. And then, of course, like maybe after a long day, do some stretching, some hip stretches, chest opening stretches, stuff like that.
So basically just be more mobile.
Yeah. And just being self-aware to about your posture and keep moving and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it, because, I think about even, bringing it back to my kids, right? Like, there's obviously a number of reasons kids aren't in pain, right?
Right.
But I look at how they move, and it's like they're doing everything, right? Not necessarily Brennan. Brennan's kind of a little potato right now.
We talk about the deep squat a lot.
Yeah.
And I love doing that with myself. So it's like, that's something where...
for those who don't know, every once in a while I just look over at Nico with one of his clients, and he's just in a deep squat sitting on the ground. And I'm like, nice.
You're supposed to be able to do that your whole life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, we think that the thing we think is, like, as we get older, we may lose that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's just because we're not as mobile, Yeah. If you look at a kid, that's a fundamental movement they're always doing,
Yeah, that's true.
Playing on the ground and stuff like that.
I remember just a couple months ago, Jamie got into a deep squat, and his toy was maybe like the distance from like here to Leicester, right? And he just did this like little duck squat in like a full, like walking over like a little duck.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling so jealous of that, because I have a little bit of knee issues. Not that I'm like letting that, dictate my life and everything, but, I have to be mindful of it to a degree. But I remember looking at that, and I can't help but feel, to your point, that if we just never stopped doing things like that,
that's the key. Just
we probably wouldn't be in as kind of some of the trouble we are now. It's 100%. Like we're almost undoing the 8-9 hours a day being at school, just sitting, right? Or then you transition into college or work, and you're doing the same thing. You're just sitting a lot, right? And so that's an interesting strategy, that because it's not all that difficult either, just to start somewhere where like, hey, how can I just move a little bit more throughout my day?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's where things like standing desks are kind of nice.
Standing desks. Yeah, I've worked with that with clients. They have standing desks. Or even those walking, like, small treadmills. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, what is that?
I'm not super familiar with, like, brands and stuff like that, but they're small. It's so you can just walk. Like, they're not the size of a regular treadmill, but they're just, like, small. It's got a belt, and you can walk. You may have a laptop up on that with a standing desk or something like that. And
so it's just something that's, like... It's a treadmill, but it's just like more
smaller,
portable, basically, or like fits more neatly into a house.
Yeah, I think some of them even fold up and stuff like that. So
the one thing I've heard about is I think one of my buddies has one of those steppers.
That's another thing too,
right? It's like a little, like a duck, right, under the water. You're just kind of like playing with your feet on the ground. But I could see that. In fact, I was laughing again earlier as you were talking about just moving more, and I'm like, score one for Team Fidget, because people who fidget more, it's almost like I'm one of those people,
That's interesting.
Right? It's like just by default, stuff like that, right? I said fidget, and Nico...
And I did.
Right?
Let me stretch my arm.
Exactly. But there's actually some practical benefits to that, right?
For sure.
In fact, when I was doing my weight loss specialist certification, that was one thing I kind of was cracking up at when I was hearing it, is I'm like reading through this chapter about like just the benefits of, it's just called non-exercise activity, right? Thermogenesis, right? NEAT for short. And just basically burning calories from not exercising, right?
Okay.
And I think it was something like maybe 40, 50 calories or something like that, right? Don't quote me, but for people who fidget per day, I'm like, hey, 50
That's
calories,
hilarious.
Yeah,
that could be like a little tiny snack or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. A little extra scoop of peanut butter, or you know, or maybe a third of an Oreo cookie
for fidgeting. Okay.
Yeah. So, so but kind of bringing it all full circle, your takeaway for just kind of the layman out there who's looking for a way to apply some of this would just be, hey, if you're sitting a lot for work,
start moving more, start stretching more.
Okay.
You know, and like we said, obviously getting some weight training to strengthen things up, that's important too.
Yeah. What is one of your go-to stretches? Like what's like a stretch, for example, that,
Great question.
you know, you've got these clients who are, sitting a lot for work, I'm sure there's probably common denominators of stretches, right? Like where, like maybe obviously customization comes in, but
I can give you one that I like for upper body and lower body each.
Okay.
Because there's so many that I like, but any kind of like thoracic mobility stuff, like extension or rotation.
Okay.
So anything where we're like turning just to open up the upper back and chest
Okay.
and stuff like that, as well as lower body like 90-90 type stretches for like hips.
Oh, for the
so
hips.
kind of getting.
Maybe we can get a little video over this later.
Right. Yeah. So those are like my go-tos if I'm going to have somebody, because there's also like progressions and regressions to each of those.
Okay.
And tons of them.
Okay.
So you can easily start out in different variations and stuff like that. And again, maybe we can add something to like a video to show that. But those are my go-tos. I don't know if you have go-tos or not.
I do, but that's awesome because like at the end of the day, I used to work for a physical therapy office, and one of the things that was like the most impactful for me as a trainer, because I did it, at the same time, 8-9 years ago.
Right.
And it's scaling things, right? You were just talking about modification, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's so important for most people because I think it's human tendency to try something and go, okay, that is uncomfortable,
Sure,
or it hurts. It's like,
and then like
I'm
never
just
do
done.
it again. Yeah.
I'm done with anything like that. And it's like, no, you may just need to modify it. And that's
Sure.
something I learned from working at the PT clinic. I'm like, dang, these guys are like, I thought it was maybe just like A, B, C for options, and then they're going like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, as far as like finding ways to like break things down to make them to do them for just make it more scalable and for the individual who is maybe working through some discomfort.
Yeah.
So that's definitely very cool. But as far as go-tos, yeah, I would just say kind of similar to you. Like so many people end up with issues, I think, from their hips being tight and their thoracic spine being tight. In particular, lately, a lot of my golfer clients, I'm not necessarily saying they're like, pro golfers, but they're just guys who love golfing. If you've ever meet golfers, it's kind of one of those things where a lot of people who golf, they golf.
Yeah.
Right? That's just their thing, especially when the weather's nice here, right? So I get a lot of clients who come in and their backs hurt, right? And so when you think about where the back is located, right, it's located smack dab between your thoracic spine. So again, maybe a little clarification for those who don't know, your thoracic spine is just your upper back. So here's your neck, which is your cervical vertebrae. Here's your thoracic spine. Again, all the vertebrae associated with the rib cage, and then your lower back is your lumbar spine, right? And so the lumbar spine is pinched right between the hips and the upper back. Right, so when you're turning for golf, for example, you're supposed to be turning through your hips. You're supposed to be turning through your thoracic spine.
Of course.
But if you're not flexible through those, right, then all that movement's going to happen on the lower back. So I would say a big one that has just, I would say generically benefited a lot of my clients is just foam rolling like the piriformis. So getting into like that figure 4 position.
On a foam roller.
Yeah. On a foam roller.
Like this, pretty much.
Yep. And again, we'll put some videos over this later. But that'd be a big one because I feel like so many people just get tight piriformis from just being seated all day long, right? It's a common misconception that muscles just get tight from maybe being strong, right? Like people, I think, maybe more traditionally think of some meathead who just
too much bench press or
some
something.
knucklehead who does 27 sets of chest press, right? But they think of that as that's how people get tight, and it's like, no, actually you can get tight from just being sedentary because the body is almost efficient to a fault, right? So if your body deems something is not being used, eventually for efficiency's sake it's going to go, I guess we don't really need that all that much, right? So, if your glutes are stretched all day long from sitting, right, or your back's
that's a common one,
like this, right? Your body kind of just goes, all right, let's work around that. Let's, and then they just basically take off, right?
Yeah.
Until you reintroduce it. So, that can happen too. People can get tight just from being sedentary, right? And so,
100%.
So I'm with you. Like, just kind of, that would be a big one. If you've got some lower back pain just if you have a suspicion that you have tight hips, I would say just foam roll them out. Do like a figure 4. That's a great way to start. It's a great way to start. I agree. So you got your corrective exercise certification, and then what has been some of your other, like, how has your career sort of ebbed and flowed since then, and like what sort of things have you been drawn to as far as continuing education and experiences that have been just kind of particularly noteworthy for you over time?
I got a life coaching certification. It's a spiritual life coaching, and I also got a Dharma certification, which is like a life purpose type certification.
Okay, they're separate?
They are separate.
Okay.
So that came through helping personal training clients because, as you can relate, I was helping some of them on other things too besides fitness.
Yeah.
So, and as well as family and stuff and friends and stuff like that. So that's how
personal training people tend to be just people who like helping people.
Sure, in general, yeah. So a lot of it came from that, and then but the biggest factor was just myself evolving through, after everyone kind of went through things after COVID, and stuff like that. But just kind of self-development journey of myself. So I became to the point where if I kind of helped like myself through a lot of these things, then I can help other people through them.
That's
awesome. That's how that started.
That's very cool. Mm-hmm. So it really was, for those who have never worked with a personal trainer, it can just work out sometimes where, we want to be of help to our clients, right? And every once in a while we have a little tool in the tool belt that might surprise you. Because, wellness and, correct me if I'm wrong, Nico, or add, please, but, I would just say, fitness is just one aspect of being a more complete individual and well-being and wellness, right?
100%.
So it's not uncommon, for us to have conversations with people about sleeping and
other habits,
and stress and stuff like that, right?
Of course.
Obviously, there's a limit
they all go hand in
to
hand.
that. But so what was the catalyst for that then? Like obviously, I would say I've talked to a lot of personal trainers throughout the years, and not many of them have a spiritual life coaching certification or a Dharma certification.
Yeah.
So.
I guess hopefully I'm answering this correctly, but because there's a lot of different kinds of certifications in terms of life coaching. There can be just like something that's more specific, which like a spiritual life coach is more specific. So
yeah,
my drive to do that specifically was because I was kind of going through like somewhat of a spiritual awakening, if you want to call it. So just again, but it all comes down to just finding myself more in my purpose. And so that's kind of how I came through with that. Does that answer your question in terms of like the kind?
Yeah. So if I can paraphrase, it sounds like what you were saying is that you were at a point in your life where you were starting to just kind of think more about bigger questions like, why am I here?
If I had to summarize, I'd say like purpose, overcoming like limiting beliefs.
Okay, yeah, those are huge.
Maybe even getting into things like, I want to say like manifesting, but just general, like, this is so important, I find, especially the more I talk with people, is like a clear vision you have for yourself and your life.
Yeah.
Because I think that's extremely important. If you don't have a vision for yourself, you'll fall into someone else's, in my opinion. So to summarize, it's like those main points that I helped myself through that then I felt confident to help other people through.
On the spot, what is the vision for your life, Nico?
Is it too
personal?
Well, there's personal aspects, but I mean, just in general, just like helping people and being able to live the life I want to live through that, and just being healthy, and what else? I like to travel, that, so traveling and things like that.
Yeah.
But overall, just living myself as healthy as I can, so then I can therefore help other people achieve that for themselves.
So I'll ask you kind of the same question I did for the corrective exercise certification. So obviously you have the ability to do life coaching separate from personal training, but how has that impacted your training, maybe in a way that is, for the listeners, right? Something that has been kind of like whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it goes hand in hand with fitness. So it doesn't have to be like in a training session, like I'm gonna help you find yourself. Like that's not what what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, but what I'm saying is they go hand in hand with sleep habits and stress. These are the things you already said.
Yeah.
Or just general like habits, daily habits that might be sabotaging someone's goals, not
Okay.
related to those things.
Okay.
Mental things like self-talk with themselves, negative
Yeah.
self-talk, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, yeah, I think that's how it can, because I think that's important with exercise too. If you have fitness goals, but you never like have a visualization of what you want yourself to feel and look like,
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot more difficult to achieve the goal than if you just have like that, what you know how you want to feel and look and things like that. So not that that's important aspect of it, but
Yeah.
people do it for other reasons. But I don't know. I think that's important too.
I'm thinking of the in-school suspension room of Naperville Central High School.
Okay.
And I'm outing myself as a naughty kid back in the day, but there was a poster. It's maybe the one thing I remember from being in that room. There was like a little poster that said something like, if you have a goal, if you don't know what you're aiming at, and
Yeah.
you'll miss 100% of the time.
I believe that 100%.
Right. So
Do you believe that?
I wish I took it to heart then.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm taking it to heart now.
Yeah.
Do I believe that? Well, I believe that like having a general sense of the direction you want to go is important.
Okay.
Right? Like maybe
that's what I mean.
like, maybe not necessarily needing to be laser focused about any particular way. But I guess like, you and I have spoken about this before, just like the idea of having like a value system, like a hierarchy of like values that are important to you, right? So if wellness is important to you, right? Like let's maybe just say generically, like the idea of being healthier, having like a more just kind of contentment in your life, having better relationships, just things that are kind of you think of as being a successful human in all regards, right? If one of those values is of importance to you, then moving in that general direction is just a great way to start.
Yeah,
right?
because then the other things will come, I believe.
Exactly.
I always believe if you're following your passions and interests, everything else will open up for you.
Yeah.
It's when people are not like following, like if they get an idea in their head, like I want to look into this more or this, and they don't follow it, then it's tougher for those doors to open, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like Jiminy Cricket, right? It's trying to tell you a little something.
Yeah.
But yeah. So just moving in that general direction, I feel like, and that's I think important for people to hear too, because I think when it comes to fitness, a lot of people can get it in their heads that you think of like the big thing, right? 40 pounds or going from being able to do 0 push-ups to 20. It's like it can be easy to project out further to something that seems sensational, right? But the reality is more sustainable results. Because, there's a lot of people who are successful one way or another and then yo-yo. Not just with weight loss, right? But even just fitness, right?
Sure.
People who got onto one thing or another. So I feel as if you just approach that just kind of little by little, sometimes that can even be more effective, right?
I agree, yeah.
So that's cool, though. So, in what way, obviously it's one thing to work with your clients, but what has been something that you feel, you talked about self-limiting beliefs and just having more wellness, like what has been something in your own life, like that maybe you were challenged with before you got your different coaching certifications, and now you feel like there's a material difference between where you were and where you are now.
Yeah, I think just getting clear on my vision for myself, and like the limiting beliefs thing. It's something I think everyone struggles with to some degree. But
What was the first one?
A general like vision for myself.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah,
and so I think that combined with like limiting beliefs, maybe even a little bit of like self-sabotage. I don't know if.
What would be an example of that?
An example of self-sabotage.
Shout out to Angela.
Oh, okay.
One of my clients, she's always saying, she said she wants to get a shirt that says, I am a self-saboteur. So also shout out to my client, Patrick, for material difference.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Self-sabotage. Yeah, in my own life, I would say just that shows up as like, I would say the biggest thing is like, if you know you have things you need to do and work on, whatever that might look like, but you procrastinate.
Okay.
That's the first thing that came up for myself that I've experienced.
Okay.
Whatever procrastinating might look like, but maybe going on my phone, scrolling through social media or something.
Okay.
When I know that like there's things I need to work on that will help progress and evolve myself, that's totally self-sabotage in my opinion.
And why do people do that?
I believe that it's almost a fear. I think like the things we want in life, we know we want them, but there's also like a fear if we actually achieve them, because it's getting out of like your comfort zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say fear. That's how it looked for me, in my opinion.
That's probably most things, right?
Fear.
Yeah, in my men's groups, I think I've talked to you about this. I'm a part of a men's group. It's been pretty profound in my life, and one of the things they often talk about is this concept called the dilemma.
Yeah,
which
you
is
talked to me about this.
Which is basically like, it seems pretty straightforward for people sometimes. Like the reason, like, why wouldn't I go towards that one thing? It's only going to make my life better, right? But then, if that were the case, you would have done it. So oftentimes there's this dilemma where you're kind of being like pulled back and forth, right? So for example, you mentioned fear. It's like the idea of, you may want to, like, let's say, pursue a fitness program, right? Like, I want that because of all these reasons, right? But I don't want that because maybe I'm comfortable right now, right? And maybe I like my routines. Maybe I like the fact that, I just get to go out to eat and eat whatever I want. Or maybe it's, bringing it back to the fear. It's like, maybe I can tell myself that it's okay because I haven't tried, but if I actually try and fail, well, now I'm insert negative self-talk, right? I'm a failure, I'm a loser, right? So it's like, it's
a battle, yeah.
Sometimes people think it's straightforward, but that's been profound for me. I'm still kind of wrapping my mind around it, that it's just like, there's all these conflicting motivations that we have that make it difficult for us to do stuff.
And I don't know if you agree, but it's not something you fix in like a month of journaling or something like that, or a year of journaling. Like, it's something that you're all like, I feel like I'm always like working at stuff like that. You
got to meditate on a mountain.
Yeah. Is that the answer?
A full year.
Straight.
40 days fasting.
That might do it, actually.
That might do it.
That might do it for me.
Yeah, but
isolation is a big thing for me. We just talked about this earlier, but I feel like a lot of growth happens in isolation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, sitting on a mountain might...
Well, there's a reason, right? If you look at, here's a monk, some monastery, right? Some Tibetan monks, right? They're off isolated, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, last time we were talking about, I hear my client Jerry right now.
Okay, yeah.
You guys are nuts. But yeah, like even like I grew up Catholic, right? So even, you think about like, that in the Bible, they're always like, Jesus went off into the wilderness, right? So it's like, even like these big figures, right? It's like, and that's in other religions too, just the idea of separating yourself to like achieve a higher purpose, right?
Yeah. There's a term I like, someone I seen online or something says like, go to the woods.
Go to the woods, okay.
And that just refers to like, it doesn't have to mean like go to the woods, but you can. But like meditation.
Have you heard of grounding? It's like this new thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do you know who Conor McGregor is?
Yeah.
I just saw a video of him the other day where he was like, the title of the video is hilarious. It's like Conor McGregor acting weird again. And so it's just him strolling through the park barefoot. And he's strolling through the park barefoot, and then he ends up going up to a tree and like just hugging the tree and like rubbing his head against the tree. And a lot of the people in the comment section are like, this is bizarre. He's a weirdo. But then there's a bunch of other people coming to his defense saying like, there's, I guess, this new concept called grounding. It's probably been around forever, right? But it's being kind of repurposed.
I mean, now they say like, you know, barefoot in grass, like it's literally like a transfer of electrons, I believe. I don't know if you've heard that, but
no,
I certainly feel good after a nice hot day, walk around barefoot and, you know, just be present with like the sounds, lawnmowers, birds, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel good after I do that. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So Lester, city life, man, you got to find a way to get barefoot. So definitely, like, as far as the life coaching, to summarize, it sounds like the main thing for you is just getting this sense of direction.
Yeah, for sure.
Of what you want for yourself, and kind of maybe not necessarily having like a laser focused definition of that, but having a general, at least some sort of idea of the direction that you want to go.
Yeah. And
then the other one was...
The other certification?
No, sorry. The other main thing that you were saying was kind of like a takeaway from that.
Direction and...
sorry, dude.
I
Putting you on the spot.
Direction and purpose.
Yeah. And then the negative self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Just
There's a lot of things, but that's the things I find most people struggle with that I talk to. Not just like clients, but just people every day, you know, a stranger or family and friends. Is just people struggle with like knowing what do they actually want for themselves.
Okay.
I don't know if you found the same, but...
Well, I was just thinking of a funny example where it's, you know, there's always nuance to this stuff, right? You know, and so I'm curious, like, what is the distinction between like what makes something like unhealthy negative self-talk and what makes it like positive self-talk?
Yeah.
Right? Because I know a lot of guys out there who have been like mid-rep. You know, kind of already know where I'm going with this. You're like, you little, whatever. Come on.
I do that a little bit.
And it's like, that is negative self-talk, right? But
it's constructive,
But it's like for a purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
We talk about intention a lot. There's like an intention behind it. So
okay, so that's it.
That's what I think, because I've done that, you know.
I can see that.
And it gets you through like a tough rep or something like that.
So it's like just
there's an intention behind it.
So it's almost like maybe... just negative self-talk that is unintentional, right? Like maybe
I like that. Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're just, it's the kind of thing where you don't even realize you're doing it probably, right?
Yeah.
Like you just, these stories you tell yourself about why you can't be this person or that person or do certain things.
Yeah, a lot of it's subconscious, you know.
Okay. So I've been wanting to talk to you about this for a while, but we keep talking about waiting for this.
Okay.
So you talk about how Costa Rica was like a life transforming experience for you.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I would say I was blown away with how drastically different, because I really dived myself into like the culture, and it's just night and day how different it is, the way people are living there compared to here. And that can mean a lot of things, but I think there people there, not everybody, but there may be people that are not as financially stable.
Okay.
Some even very poor, but they're the happiest people I've met. And it makes you think, it's like, how's that possible? Sure, it's like beautiful there. There's waterfalls, rainforests, nice
that
weather.
Helps.
Makes it. I mean, I really do believe that helps. You know.
I've heard just water in general.
Yeah,
right?
water.
Like there's something about hearing
water and more green everywhere.
Okay.
You know, we go through these winter months here, and everything's gray and dead. You know. And I think that makes a huge difference on the mood. But besides that, I would say like the quality of life. I feel like it's like healthier food there and stuff like that.
How so?
And I would say like more.
I mean, you don't have to convince me much that American food is less healthy than anywhere else.
Everything is very processed here, chemicals in our food, stuff like that. I think the water's cleaner. I think that the fruit is more fresh and abundant. That's for sure. And maybe less chemicals and processed foods and stuff like that. Do you want to know something? I may have told you this. You hear about like people getting sick when they go to other countries. The first few days I was there, like 8 days, I didn't get sick or anything like that. There was like the 4th day where I did get sick, and I was looking back. It was the only day I ate a cheeseburger, like American food. Not saying that's connected with like the food here. But all the food I was eating there, which is when you're there, it's a lot of like fruit, rice and beans. They eat like pork and chicken and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Plantains have you ever had a plantain?
What? It's like a banana?
Yeah, but they fry it.
Okay.
And it was like, I didn't think I would like fall in love with that, but it was like absolutely amazing. But anyways, I was mostly eating that stuff and I never got sick from anything like that. But it was when I had like the burger, and that could have been just because this was at a hotel, so maybe they're trying to cater to like tourists and stuff to have options that aren't just their food. But it's just interesting how, maybe they aren't as comfortable making that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's a big part of their diet,
Just like cheap American food, cheeseburgers, stuff like that. Yep. I don't know. I've never been there.
I feel like people there are more present. The other thing I wanted to mention is it's a much slower pace of life.
Okay.
I know we talked about this. So everyone here is like, go, 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 boom, 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 calendar, got to do this, got to do that, get home, do this, do that. So in Costa Rica, there's something they call Tico time. So Tico is like what they call like someone.
That
I could be
sounds
wrong.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's like Tika is like a female and Tico. I could be wrong, but it's just what they call it.
Sounds good to me.
So Tico time, like, it's people might, if you have an appointment, they might be late. Because it's just
that's
everyone's
so hard for me to get on board with as an American.
Yeah, like here everything is, but I mean, yeah, people just generally move slower there, and but not just slow like in a lazy way. They're just more present, in my opinion.
So do you think? Okay, so I've had clients who are of like Indian descent. Like I had a client who was a Spanish teacher, and she ended up living in Spain for a bit, and they talk about stuff like that at times. Obviously, there's no like one broad stroke that applies to all of it, right? There's different people from Spain and different people from India, but there's just this idea of kind of that where people show up late and it's not necessarily a big deal. So for me, at first glance, that seems rude.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
Like on one end, I can see the benefit of being laid back, but so I would imagine a lot of that has to do with how the recipient of the lateness perceives it.
Exactly.
So what do you think goes through there? Did you ever talk to locals about that? Like how they just view time and view just making plans in general? It's hard like I said, it's kind of hard for me to...
I think it goes back to just their values because
if you, let's say, for example, you and I made a plan to get coffee.
Okay.
And like 30 minutes later, you're like coming with sunglasses.
Your natural instinct
with a coconut. Sure. Right? I'm like, you look happy, but I'm irritated right now. But like,
there's there's certain levels to it, I'm sure, but I think it's like their values and maybe they are just more. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and really. I experienced it a little bit, but I didn't fully dive into it. I didn't really talk to like locals about that particularly. It's just what I noticed and what I read like online about like this thing called Tico time.
Maybe it's something like this. Like last night, for example, one of my buddies and his wife was coming over to meet my Brennan, my newborn, and they kind of have a history of being late, right? And in the past, maybe we sat around the room kind of being like, right, they're not here yet, they're not here yet, they're not here yet. Where this time, instead, we just said, we're going to go to the park. Yeah. And I'll just keep my phone on. Yeah. And if they call, they call. And if they don't, or when they will eventually, but we're just going to hang out. Maybe it's more like that. Like maybe the person who's maybe the recipient of the lateness isn't as married to the idea of like, hey, we have to start. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to see them. I'll do my own thing in the meantime.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it is interesting, right? How it's hard, like when you grow up in a different culture and that's what you know, it can be difficult to
especially if you go there because you're so used to, and that's why I said to you that it was a life-changing trip for me. Yeah. Because it's a perspective shift. If you go there, you're going to be like, don't they call it like culture shock or something like that? Where you're just like...
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's just you go to another country and it's like, okay, like I have to adjust to this, Yeah. And not only with the time thing, but just how they live in general and how they approach their lives,
So what do you think? What do you think is the better one?
Do you want me to answer that honestly?
Yeah, of course I do.
yeah, Costa Rica is definitely the better one in my opinion.
As far as the time goes.
Oh, the time thing?
We don't want to piss off like an entire all Americans here,
It
right?
depends on.
But if we're just looking specifically at, the culture of how we view time.
Okay, the time thing, I mean, if you're running a business or something, it might be different. But if I'm just going to answer like who's living healthier, happier, more peaceful, just who's living in a better way, I think it's someone in a place like that, in my opinion.
Communist alert. I'm just kidding. No, that's...
But it depends on the person's goals. I mean, I have shifted my life to not need a lot. I'm more
like more of a minimalist.
Minimalist, yeah. So, but that might not work for someone out there in Costa Rica. It depends on the person's goals. I tend to want to be in nature more and stuff like that. But might be people that like city life and stuff like that, and that's perfectly fine too, because it just depends on the person.
So yeah,
there's cities. I mean, there's like San Jose. There's the capital and stuff. But I'm saying like being in San Jose in Costa Rica is much different than being in like Chicago.
That's not the first time I've heard things like that about food, right? So, for example, like outside the country, like even in some of my own research.
Have you experienced it all in other countries?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm like, I need to live more. I need to get out
I
more. My wife
that,
really wants me to. Like, she wants to go to various places in the world. And I want to too, especially hearing stories like from people like you who have been to places like Iceland and Costa Rica, and even some of my clients. But I guess I've been stuck in the mindset of there's like 52 states in the United States, and I want to check out some of those. But maybe that's just me being a chicken, right? We were talking about self-limiting beliefs. I do have a fear around that, actually, just kind of traveling in the country, outside the country, especially in a place where people don't, like if I don't have some sort of like liaison who is there to look out for my best interest, and I don't speak the language. I do have fear around that. Maybe I shouldn't, but I think it's a little naive to assume you're just going to be completely set and safe no matter where you go in the world, right? It's not necessarily...
Totally depends.
Could be right? But yeah, like one of my clients went to Greece, for example, and he was talking about how there's no such thing as non-GMO in Greece because everything is non-GMO, right? And then he was talking about how he drinks beer here and his stomach hurts and he gets bloated, right? Maybe not hurts, but he gets bloated. And then he drinks beer there and he felt like he was, like you mentioned, being light earlier with the fruit thing.
It's crazy.
And I'm just like, dang, dude, like what is that about? Like we need to tap into that. Or even just like, with me having these young kids, I'm mindful of just like giving them what they need and doing the best I can for them, and even just stuff like all the like pesticides that are in our crops here in America, and it's completely different than most of the other first world countries, like our friends in Europe, right? Especially like even I think glyphosate, which is like Roundup, is illegal in Europe, right? Because it's pretty much considered to be carcinogenic.
Oh, it is,
right? So it's just it's kind of a trip how we're the most powerful country in the world, and don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of wonderful things that I'm grateful for being a part of this country, but as far as like health goes, that just seems like a big miss to not just have our food dialed in, right? But I don't know how you fix that.
And that goes back to like that perspective shift I have. I wanted to touch on this because you mentioned like traveling in the US, and that's something I always wanted to do more of, and I still will, and I'm planning to, but when you go to somewhere like that, like what it made me want to do is travel outside of the country more.
Okay.
Like permanent, like it made me like, I actually have this mindset of like, I don't want to waste money on traveling in the US.
Really?
Yeah.
And so why do you feel that way about it?
Just experience.
Is it because the biggest thing is that you want to experience different cultures?
Yeah.
Like almost have your...
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
And that's the part I love about it the most.
Just looking, almost having a paradigm shift in a way.
Yeah, I want to see if like I get even more perspective shifts going to like other countries.
That's awesome.
Because again, like Iceland is much different than Costa Rica, but yeah, I think... And like I said, I still plan to travel in the U.S., but there's more of a priority to travel outside the U.S.
So what's the next one?
Outside of the U.S.?
Yeah.
I'd like to eventually get to like Switzerland or Thailand. Those are my next two, like on my list for sure.
Thailand's
But those
been
are a
around for
little
while.
deeper to plan. Like they're, you know, a lot farther and a lot more planning, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for places like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I could do those long flights either. I'd have to, but like to Thailand, for example.
How long would it be?
14 hours.
Yeah, it's
Oh man.
yeah.
Well, Lester, you have family in the Philippines.
I do, yeah.
How often have you been there?
You know, when I was growing up, it was like once every 2 years. I just got back we went last year. It was awesome.
Dude.
We piggybacked on a Japan trip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you went to
That's-
Japan too?
It's
All
amazing.
right, Lester, get over here. But your cousin Joe told me that it's very similar to what you're saying about just the difference in perspective. He talks about how he has family there, where they essentially have like dirt floors and like a village sharing bathrooms, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, these people like. Obviously, there's a give and take anywhere, but
Of course.
a lot of them seem very happy.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like they're rooted in values
Yeah.
that are more real, right? Like
So
family
crazy.
and whatever.
We talked about that before too, about like the community and stuff like that. Sense of community, you know?
Yeah.
So that's crazy to me too, you know?
That definitely seems like a thing that is probably on one end like a beautiful aspect of the United States, and that individualism is a priority, right? Like
You need both, yeah.
Yeah, but like your individual, like, you know, I would say a lot of people would probably say the American dream is roughly the something to the degree of in your own lifetime you could make something from yourself if you like pull up your bootstraps, even if you're starting from here and going there. Right. And so that's that idea, like me, right? What I can do, right? And how can, you know, what's in it for me,
Yeah.
right? But, you know, it's interesting how there are obviously many benefits to that, right? But also it seems like there's a drawback from too much self-focus and not enough focus on
Right.
community, family, things like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, Thailand's definitely been one on the list for me before.
Yeah.
Actually, back in the day, I was at a Muay Thai gym, and everybody took a trip, and it was like $2,000 or something like that for, you know, I think it was the flight and staying at a Muay Thai gym.
Yeah. Oh wow.
For like 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
I actually
2
really
weeks.
regret not doing that.
2 weeks, yeah, that's a good amount of time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you're like staying in a Muay Thai gym, and food's provided. You're like you're sleeping at the gym. So,
Yeah.
you know, not that you had to be there all the time, but
Yeah.
some of the guys got back and they told me about it, and I'm just like,
It's
this
tough.
is a
I mean,
regret.
travel is very expensive. I mean, you can do
Yeah.
your best. I did a lot of research on the places I went to. Iceland's technically the most expensive country in the world.
Really?
At least it was when I went. I don't know if it might change often, but I think, I don't know, I have such a high value on like life experience. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily, I had the money to go to those places, but I mean, I would try to work around it as much as I can.
Dude, that's awesome.
So.
Well, I also have a high value on life experience, which is why I'm glad I was able to do this with you today.
Yes, absolutely.
Always a pleasure, Nico.
Absolutely,
You're
you too.
amazing.
So are you.
And yeah, we'll try to get some of those videos on some of the exercises we were talking about earlier, and you know, a little bio description for Nico for those who want to learn more about him. He's a very interesting guy, man of many talents. Dude, I'm gonna throw your album in one of the links too, because this guy just dropped an album on Spotify. It's actually really awesome.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.